Thank you guys for joining. So today we'll talk a bit about our, it's a course, but it's really something that's program related. And we do it under this banner called MMA Gives. And really it's to have our students participate in kind of a market case, which is also a project where we can give back our expertise. So that's the overarching theme of this. The students, this is kind of towards the end of their 1 year, it's a specialized master's program. So they do about 8 to 9 months prior to this project. And then towards the end, they're trying to build up their own acumen in terms of doing projects on their own. They do a project for a larger organization, a corporate partner in the earlier part of the year. And now we do one with kind of smaller organizations or socially driven organizations. So I'll start with that, give you guys a bit of a preview as to what the overarching aspects are of the project, and then I'm happy to take questions. So hopefully I'll be in like 15 or 20 minutes, and then I'll take some questions. So what is it? We always get asked, what can we do for the organization? So at the beginning, I remember talking to clients, and it's always about like, what do you guys need? And then you say, what can you do? And then we go into a bit of a dance in terms of what are some of the approaches and problems that we can solve. I like to categorize it into these 3 sections. So we can do, we like to do an end-to-end solution, which is usually a combination of all 3, but we could do and help you solve problems on the back, what we call the back end, which is things like data pipelining, creating databases, trying to do a bit more automation of your analytics or data processes. The middle end is more of our bread and butter. This is the kind of predictive modeling, which the students obviously spend a lot of time doing in the course, and that they also enjoy a lot. So oftentimes our clients aren't sure what is it that they might be looking for, and that's where this is it's called a community analytics and consulting project. So the students will also help you try to figure out what's the best problem to solve if you do need help on that. And then the last part is the kind of the icing on the cake, which is the front end. So user dashboards, visualization, user experience, data collection, all that type of stuff that might go into communicating out the results for your colleagues and your clientele as well. So what are some of the terms and conditions? Some of our clients ask, like, what is the setup of this? This is meant to be and try to mirror a consulting engagement. So what we will do is, these are the kind of the 4 topics that we usually try to discuss. So at the beginning of the project, or probably like 25% in, the students will create what's called a statement of work, and that's the first line there. And that's what will define in terms of making sure that both the student, the program, and the client as well is on the same page. So all of this is going to be, again, case by case. We will define the problem with you, and then both of you guys will sign off in terms of, yes, this is what we agree on the scope. To let you know, all students commit to at least 100 hours. If you guys have a good experience and the students have a good experience, they typically do more. So this is their minimum. They have to do that for the course. And you can also, depending on the scale of your project, you can get more than 1 student. So some of our projects have, multi-scope, and I've seen, even upwards of 4 students to a particular project. The key thing is we'd like to try to spread it out and make sure that if we have lots of clients, that everyone gets at least 1 person. But if we have space, we can certainly allocate that. The key there is when you see the latter part where I talk a bit about the project scope, just describe all that you need. I typically like to split it out into different types of what we call use cases. And then what you can do after that is we will help match you to the appropriateness of the use case and how much bandwidth we have with the students. In terms of the IP, you guys fully own the IP. It's like a consulting engagement. We hand it over to you, all the raw files, all the development that the students have done, we'll pass it over to you. The students would like to obviously retain the methodology. So scrubbing all of your unique information. We would like to just talk about, like, if we build a predictive model, they'd like to be able to talk about that in the future in terms of something that they did. So as long as they have ability to do that, that's important. And then for us as a program, we often do like scrub down the information, and we might use it as marketing material or something like that. But we will try to and for general education purposes. But of course, we'll try to get your approval and your okay before we expose that anywhere outside of the class. So the delivery, the students will build a solution. Again, there's a technical element where they'll try to build something for you, and then depending on a case by case, there might be a final presentation. The nice news about this at the bottom is that this is a zero fee consulting engagement. If there are additional costs that are incurred, for example, let's just say you need a specific software used, then you would provide that environment or incur that costs. Okay, so options, yeah, so there's again, either we do a prototype or if we do a full pilot. If you guys want to take this on and like what you see and want to build this further, we'll try to help you do that as well. Okay, next is just a bit about their skills. So this is something, I'll send you guys the slide deck afterwards, but this is something that you'll see. Students come into the program with a varying set of skills: math, comp sci, engineering, commerce, pure sciences. They come in with a number of technical background skills. In the middle box, we talk about what we teach in the program. So advanced statistics, machine learning, some coding in various tools. And then you see at the bottom the types of industries that they get exposure to. Again, that's not all of them. They get exposed to a lot of different industries, but something that you could help them with is how do you, teach them the industry that you are working in. And then we're trying to build more and more of cloud infrastructure in the program, but students, depending on the class that they take, may or may not have exposure to that. Okay, so what's the value proposition, the scope? Again, for you, you get hopefully a state-of-the-art analytic approaches, best practices that we try to develop for you. We will hand over, as I mentioned, any technical build that there is, or sometimes there's a business case that we build as well, and we'll hand over all of that to you. You get a structure. So I'm the instructor for the course, so overseeing all the projects, and I typically have some coaches with me. You'll have oversight, and then you'll get perspectives of a wide variety of individuals. The students on their side, they get something that's a bit more tangible, like instead of doing theoretical classwork, we want to dive in deep into a real world problem. As I mentioned, they do one on the corporate side, and then they'll do one here with this, with either socially driven individuals or organizations, and also something that will have an impact down the line. So in terms of timelines, it's essentially a 2-month project. We do start with some of the admin parts in May, but the students will be officially enrolled in the course as of June 1st. So June 1st is the official start date, but you can imagine there's a lot of prep work that comes in that, so don't be surprised if we start earlier. And we will submit July 31st. Sometimes students, it's the end of their program, sometimes they do submit a little bit earlier, but it's up to them. They are not required to submit anytime before July 31st, but they can't submit any time later. As I said, 100 hours worth of students, and typically we see 1 to 2 students per project. So it's better if they work in pairs. And again, if you need more or less, we can discuss that and give you that sense. So in terms of the timelines, we spend a bit of time, a couple of weeks on the project definition. The students will build a statement of work. We'll also sign with you a partner agreement that I'll show you slightly later. And then we execute the project, which is the majority of the time, probably about a month. And then the handoff, which is essentially wrapping up the project and giving you next steps, is what we finish off with. And so you can see here, clients always ask how much time is involved on your side. We try to make it as light as possible, but as you can imagine, this is a zero fee project. So your cost is essentially a bit of time with the students to help them understand the industry and then overlook their solution and just give them feedback. They're always really open to feedback. So, try to give them, fair but honest feedback that could help improve their skills. Okay, some use cases and some past project work examples. As you can see here, I typically, in my career, have seen most use cases fit into one of these 8. It's kind of the more simpler ones at the top, all the way to the more complex ones. Something as easy as doing some dashboarding and some business intelligence, defining KPI metrics, all the way down to something like decision automation, and then something like process optimization. So this is a bit of a busy slide, so I won't go over it, but I'll show, have this available for you all. The definition of each of these, kind of a quick description of each of those different use case categories, some examples of what work needs to be done, and then on the right column, the business value that it drives for your organization. So what are our expectations of you? We would like to have somebody play these roles. So the project sponsor and project manager typically is one of you who would kind of trigger off the projects. Project manager in terms of obviously keeping the students up to date and making sure that they have what they need. SME is subject matter expert, somebody who can teach them about the business side of it, about the operations. And then data owner, anybody who might need to get the students either data or information. So that's, and it's okay if one person plays all of those roles, just as long as they can get students information. Again, we're here to help you. So the more support that the students can get, the better that they can deliver for you. And then just in terms of the expectations, this is what students should expect from our clients, and then what the client should expect from the students. Again, an analytic solution, a proposed output. Again, those are more the technical aspects that we'll give you. And then, as I mentioned, you'll also have faculty oversight and a structure that the students will follow. So hopefully that gives, we've done this in the past, and we seem to have narrowed it down to a really good process that we think drives good value for both sides. Okay, and that's it. So I'm happy to share a couple of other files with you, and then I'll open it up to questions. So as you can see here, if you have any questions, either to myself or my colleague Monica, who I think has been in touch with you, you can also message the general inbox, which is mma@mcgill.ca. And if in the subject line you just put in MMA Gives as the prefix, then they'll know to send it to us, our team. Okay, so outside of that, there's a couple of other things that everyone will be required to do. There's what's called a partner agreement, which we'll send you. It's essentially a list of just some procedural elements that everyone hopefully would be on the same page. So we'll just ask you to say, okay, yep, I agree to take on 2 students for the 2 to 3 month period. And I understand that there are certain academic requirements that are required for their projects, but for the majority of the projects, we'll try to solve as much as we can for you. And then how this project really begins is, hopefully you guys can see my Excel sheet. This is where we start with the input form. So this is a bit of a background in terms of your organization. So a couple of details about your company name, the type, et cetera. And there's some drop-down categories there. Your core website, so the students can look you up. And then essentially you'd be filling out this part here, the use cases. So you just give it a title. So for example, use case is a type of project that we would do. So if your use case is a little bit about dashboarding, so you would say, customer lifetime value dashboard, and you would put that as a title. The objective would be, what are you trying to solve? And all the bullet points here are tips for you to fill in the gap. So you can fill in the objective. What are you trying to achieve the most? What are the priorities? The next part here is the pain point. So just give us an idea of what you guys are struggling with. Either you've done this before and something happened and you want to try it again with an outside view. Or maybe you might say, well, we're just busy battling fires elsewhere, and we don't have the skills, and that's why we're engaging with McGill. Success metrics, what would you define as success? So let's just say we're at the end of the project and the students do a presentation for you. What are you looking for? What are some of the key metrics that you would, I'll give you an example. Every time we do a predictive model. Somebody might say, oh, well, we want to try to make sure the accuracy is at X percent. Or we've already done a model and we'd like to improve it by Y percent. Okay, so those are things that you can do. Again, it's not something that we would say we promise to deliver, but if we know what your target is, we'll definitely aim for that. And then the last two parts, which is really about data. So internal data is really about the data that you own within your organization, and what is it that you are looking for, that you have. So what's the data that you own? Is it in structured format, for example, anything that fits in a database or Excel? And then external data is anything that you don't own directly that might be out in the public. So for example, we always say, like, we look at government sources if we want to look for demographic data. If that will help your project and you know of those sources, it's better to give the students a tip as to where they could go for that. So essentially that's it. And then the last part here is the business value. So if you put multiple use cases, what's important is that the business value is something that you look at and you say, okay, relatively to the different use cases. As you can see here, you only need to do one use case if you want to, but you can see here it's just repeated use case number 2, use case number 3. So we'll help you out with that if you have any issues, but if you want, you can just start with the first one and try to add as many details as possible. And also, if you have different facets of your project that you want to look at, just, as I said, you can either put it into one use case or you can split it out and make it into multiple use cases. We typically say, give us as many issues that you have, and it's better that we know all the issues so that we can also prioritize. And maybe we might suggest, maybe it's a tiebreaker for you, and we might suggest something that we can work on. So this one is the partner agreement. Again, it just goes over the the fact that it's a 0 fee, 1 to 3 students. It's in one page, so you can take a look at this a bit closer. Point number 4 talks a little bit about the data that you're going to use. Point number 3 talks a bit about the NDA that you can sign. If you guys have an NDA, the students can sign that. Otherwise, we have our own. If you don't have an NDA, that's fine as well. It's really up to you. Point number 4 talks about the different types of outputs that the students will work on. So it could be any of these: business case, analytic solution, technology solution, or user experience. Point number 6 talks a bit about the marketing, and that we would really like to advertise this out to the market, because I think all of our clients in the past have thought that it's a good idea for both sides. It gives exposure to both things. And then point number 7 talks a bit about the students' experiences and how they would like to use it in their careers going forward. So if there's anything that they cannot share on LinkedIn or their CVs, make sure to let them be aware of that. And then point number 8 is that you guys agree that we can use teaching assistants who are also coaches for myself and help the projects run well. Okay, so that's the partner agreement that we'll ask all of our partners to sign. And then the last one here is the NDA. We have a McGill NDA. It's a standard, very straightforward agreement that says that we won't obviously share the data with anybody who shouldn't be shared with, and you guys can use that if you desire. If you go mcgill.ca/MMA, or just do a McGill MMA search. Let me just increase that a little bit. Okay, so if I go to Experiential module, you'll see we have examples of corporate projects or community projects. I'll click over here for community projects. And then you can see a little bit about a couple of different links that you can have, and a couple of videos that we show. And then here are some of the community projects that we've done in the past. And you can see the different types of subgroups that exist. Again, there's no subgroup that we wouldn't do. So just let us know. The only thing that we would have an issue with is if it's a profit-driven organization and you have lots of resources. Like this particular project is for socially driven organizations, anybody that has a purpose that will help society. And then you can see there's a couple of featured projects. So for example, we did one with Canadian National Institute for the Blind. You can see the individuals who were part of it, and then the scope and the pain points and the outcomes as well. So I'll just copy paste this. Let me go back to the community page. I'll just put this in the chat and stop sharing. I'll just put in the chat if you want to go to that page in particular. Okay, so that's it for me. So hopefully it gives you guys a bit of an overview. I'll pause the recordings now.